Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sarah Evangeline. I'm so excited to be with you today. On this channel, we talk all about inner child healing, spiritual awakening, and how the two are related is exactly what I'm going to teach you today because I believe, and what I've experienced in myself and my clients is the inner child and our soul are one. They are not separate. And so many of us, we have been programmed, we have grown up with the belief that they're separate, that our intuition, maybe we're disconnected from our intuition. I definitely know I was. Um, so I'm going to share with you some tips on how to heal your inner child. One of the first steps that I teach inside the Soul Talk method. I'm going to cover that today. The Soul Talk method is my program that I teach all about healing the inner child and deepening your soul awakening. If you're interested, go to the links below and you'll see more information. So in this video, I want to share with you how you can embody freedom by connecting to your inner child, as well as I'm going to share with you part of my story and journey of my spiritual awakening and how that ignited my inner child to be free. So I want to ask you guys a question, and that is, do you feel like someone dimmed your light? Do you feel like as an adult, someone's dimmed your light? Maybe you're really struggling to fit in, overwhelmed. Maybe you've been on this healing journey for a while and you're just like, when is the hard stuff going to end? Um, and so many of us, we are carrying painful emotions in our body that have been with us since childhood. And when we start to release those, when we actually start to see ourselves, learn to be safe within ourselves again, we start to release this emotional pain and we start to experience a completely different life that we didn't know was possible. And I'm here today to tell you guys that it is completely possible for you to live a life of freedom, to live a life that you truly desire. It is not all rainbows and butterflies and easy. It's not always easy. I would say this journey of the last 6 years for myself in healing my inner child, awakening my soul has been an incredible, so many wonderful things and also so many challenges because I have chosen not to stay comfortable. I've chosen to take the path less traveled. I have chosen not to do just what anyone else has told me to do. I've cut ties with people pleasing. I stand up for my boundaries, and not everyone likes that. Not everyone is ready for that. And still continuing to learn how to anchor my inner voice and to listen to her above the crowd. Because what I truly believe is that you and I want to talk about you for a second. You are here for a very specific reason. Your soul knows why you're here. And that's why your soul is connected to your inner child. Because when you first came into this planet, when you first were here and innocent and stepping out, you didn't have this filter of society and belief systems that have shaped your worldview and shaped your self identity. You just stepped out. So I want you just to picture yourself as a child. Picture yourself and reflect on a memory of when you were just having fun with life. You were in your imagination, creativity, wonder. For me, it was when I was growing up, there was a forest in the back of my parents' house where I lived. And I would go out there and I'd pretend that I was this princess on a horse, warrior here to save the world. Ironically, now I believe we're all earth warriors. But at the time, I was, you don't care. You don't care about bills. You don't know about um, grades in school yet. You're just you and your being. As a child, you really, really know how to be. And even when we've had immense trauma, because I know some of us, including myself, have gone through immense trauma, we can reflect back on our journey. That is how we connect with soul, with our spirit, with our inner child. And this comes to light with the very first step in the Soul Talk method, as well as what I believe we all need. And that is to simply and profoundly give our inner child permission to be free, permission to be seen again. So many adults don't realize that they have an inner child. And the thing is, every single human being has an inner child. Actually, we all have many versions of inner childs within us that make up who we are. So the 5-year-old you, where your parents divorced, the 8-year-old you that was bullied, um, the version of you when your teacher told you were a failure, those things have stuck with you and you've brought them into childhood, or you've brought them into adulthood. And so, again, we don't want to just dwell on the past and the bad of the past and the hard times. I want you to also just really allow yourself to see the good as well. And this is not to give an excuse to anyone who has hurt you. It more so is, um, so many of us, we were not seen, heard, and expressed. And that is what we crave when we are children. We crave to be seen, heard, and expressed. So I want to ask you a question, is, did you have to give your needs away in order to be loved as a child? Just reflect on that. And that even might pop up a memory for you where you can give your inner child love, permission to be seen, permission to love that part of you that went through that experience, right? And this is the first step. It's acknowledging, it's stepping into that awareness. It's realizing, okay, maybe when I get triggered, or maybe when I'm with family, or this thing comes up at work, maybe it's connected to my inner child and something that happened to me back then that I haven't released yet because that emotion and that pain is still within me. Now, a lot of people will tell me, Sarah, I had a great childhood. My parents were together. I had a nice house. Everything was great. My childhood was great. I had no trauma. I'm fine. Now, what I'm here to say is that we all have an inner child that wants to be free. I cannot extend that enough or say that enough. But then when I ask these people more questions, it turns out like, oh, okay, mom and dad treated me well, but they were always fighting. So now I'm scared of intimacy. Or mom and dad rarely told me they loved me, and now I feel like I have to prove myself to someone else. So acknowledging this is also going to help you release tension, release grudges, release resentment. I had so much pent up resentment against my parents that I wasn't even aware of, and it would just come out sometimes in interactions. And I'm like, why am I being like this? I'm not like this with anyone else. I don't want to be like this. This is not my true nature. So really pay attention to how you react to things, how you handle situations. That is also going to be linked to your inner child. And so, again, just picture yourself or allow yourself to go back to the memory. For me, again, I'm on the horse, I'm riding wild and free on the way to conquer the world. And, there were sometimes I'd be in that forest and I would see unicorns. And people love to tell me that unicorns don't exist. But for me, they did. And so there are so many ways that you are connected to your soul. And what I believe is, as adults, when we uncover who we truly are, learn to be safe within ourselves again, free our inner child, what's going to inevitably happen is we are going to start to see the world completely different. We are going to start to see the world through the lens that we used to when we were a child, and therefore connect with the spirit side of us that maybe we didn't know existed. For me, I grew up in church, followed the rules. I was a very good little girl, didn't want to cross any boundary lines, but I would wake up with panic in my chest. I did everything on the checklist of things to do. Went to university. I was an author before I was 21. I had speaking engagements. I did so many things that people told me, do it. This is how you get success. But I was miserable on the inside. I was hitting depression, which is what psychologists and people who are experts in this field will say, dark night of the soul. So maybe you guys can relate to that. Maybe one of you is going through a dark night of the soul where you're miserable. And for me, what was going on in my mind was, how can this be all that life is? There has to be more to life than this. I have done so much, but I feel so empty. This can't be why I came here. So Also, this is a way to give your inner child permission to be seen, is just allowing yourself to ask these questions. You do not need to have the answers. It's about allowing yourself to ask the questions and seeing what your soul and spirit will show you. Because you will see something completely different than what I will see. And that is how we change the world. It's how we raise the frequency. It's how we heal the collective of this planet. So wherever you are, you're right on time. But how can you give your inner child permission? Be seen today. So there's an 8-step process that I teach inside the Soul Talk method. But for today, I want you to just look at yourself in the mirror. Take the phone wherever you are, go to the mirror and just look at yourself in the face. Look at yourself in the eyes and just say, I give you permission to be seen today. Show up, right? And that's going to activate. All this is an activation to allow your inner child to come forth. And again, you don't have to force it. Your inner child has always been there. Your inner child is your intuition, your soul, your true self, your inner voice. Just give it permission. Don't worry about all the hows yet. Just give it permission. And that's what I did. I was in such a place in my life where I was hitting burnout after burnout. I was about 25 at the time. So some people identified it as a quarter-life midlife crisis. For me, something was happening inside me that I did not know. And it was like a pressure cooker, and I was going to boil over. And I was in school to become a pastor. At that time, I was an author. I had my master's in counseling, and again, the checklist. And so I thought, okay, if I go into full-time ministry, maybe that is where I will be fulfilled. Maybe that's my calling, because that's what everyone else told me. Oh, Sarah, you'll be such a good pastor. It's what you need to do. It's the highest calling. And because I did not know how to tap into my own inner voice, I relied on others to tell me what to do. So maybe you can relate to that. And so again, I was in this pressure cooker and I was like, I cannot do this anymore. And the scary thing, the really hard thing is, well, if I don't stay here, if I don't stay comfortable, what else am I going to do? The unknown was so terrifying to me that's why I kept doing what other people told me to do. It's why I kept quiet. But I was sitting in a class as I was becoming a pastor, and I remember sitting there just visualizing this bird. And this bird was flying free. It was soaring, and I just wanted to be that bird. So I let myself go into this place of visualizing myself as a bird. And the girl sitting next to me, who we had built a relationship with, she nudged me and she's like, Sarah, Sarah. And I was annoyed at first because I really wanted to just be in this visualization space by myself. And she said, Sarah, I think God wants me to tell you something, and that's that you have wings you have not flown yet. And so that was the final nudge for me. I started bawling. I had to walk out of class, and I went up to someone else who I felt really safe with. She was a pastor and a life coach. And I just sat down with her. I'm crying because what I'm scared of is condemnation, judgment, and the unknown. And I just said to her, I have no idea what I want to do with my life, but I don't think this is it. And what she did for me in that moment ignited where I am today. And I want to do the same for you guys today in this video. She looked at me with such compassion, and she asked me a very simple and powerful question. And that was, well, Sarah, what do you want your life to be like? What do you want? And then I started crying more because up until that point, I didn't realize I was allowed to ask myself that question. I didn't know that I could deserve what I wanted. And that was a belief that I carried with me since childhood because my needs were not met. And so in that moment, my inner child was coming forth. It was uncomfortable. I was crying. I was scared, but I was also relieved. So after I was given myself permission to be seen in that way with that beautiful woman giving me a safe space, sometimes we just need that safe space, right? Because it's hard to speak up. especially at the very beginning when you've never done it before, you've never put yourself first in that way. It is terrifying. And so the beautiful thing is I stayed at the school I was in. I was given a therapist, and I really just worked on my spiritual disciplines. And I was living alone in a condo where I was just experiencing God in a completely new way. I would see things differently. I had this release of just not caring and not having stress anymore. I remember lying on my carpet in my condo, just having a God experiencing, feeling like I wasn't even here. And this was all my soul finally awakening out of that dark night of the soul that I talked about earlier. Um, and I believe it's linked to giving your inner child permission to be seen. And I will tell you that I lived with anxiety, waking up with panic in my chest every morning, not sleeping. I was on medication since I was 7 years old, wasn't sleeping. And in that place, I learned to sleep and relax. I learned to relax. I remember the first night going to bed with peace and just being like, holy shit, this is what peace feels like, right? You're told about God, you're told about Jesus, and they give you peace. But right there's this power that you have to give yourself that permission to. And I just remember going to bed with peace in my heart for the first time, sleeping so soundly. My nervous system was starting to calm down. So it can seem really simple, but it's also very profound. And I also hope that encourages you, because the same place that I felt was pushing me into a mold I didn't belong into was the same place that I awakened and I started the journey of where I am today. So I am so grateful for my past. I'm so grateful for the people who pushed me and challenged me, because it all led me to here. And having that grace and that love and that compassion also frees you. So I'm sending you all love. Choose life. Choose life in every moment.